right now we have a fantastic panel, which is going to be led by Cedric Ingrand, who has the wonderful title of Resident Geek at TF1, which is one of the largest French television stations. He has been running Plein Écran, which is a weekly show on technology, trends, and startups, really doing some fascinating stuff. So I will ask Cedric to come on to introduce his panel, which is about how social is changing the gaming industry. Cedric, please.
Does that work? Yeah, it does. We have 30 minutes to cover one of the most fascinating areas of innovation right now on the web. I just read a week ago that collectively, Facebook users, for example, clock 1 billion hours of gameplay a month. And we made every effort not to have Zynga on this panel, so they're over there at their booth, so we could have like a real conversation without having a 900-ton gorilla, you know, looking at us. I'd like to introduce the panel first, and this is how you discover that you actually need 2 hands to work a tablet. First of all, Jens, to my right, Jens Begemann, you're the founder of Wooga. Can you tell us a few words about Wooga?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah,
so
good.
Wooga is a social games company. We're less than 2 years old, based in Berlin. So we do Facebook games, and we now have 15 million monthly active users. So that makes us number 7 in the world of the social game companies. 55 people, growing at 1 person per week. And our audience is 70% women.
To your right, Mike Kerns, you're the Vice President for Social Games and Personalization at Yahoo. Well, Yahoo needs little introduction, but actually what you're doing in social gaming might.
Sure. So we are obviously aware of the trends and the phenomena of social gaming, and have a partnership with Zynga, where we are distributing their games throughout our network and kind of fine-tuning our virality as we go. That's it.
To my left, a man who, at least in France, needs no introduction, Nicolas Gaume, who's the co-founder and CEO of Mimesis Republic. Actually, the company might need a little explanation because you haven't launched yet.
Yeah, Mimesis is a 3-year-old startup with 50 people in Paris and in Bordeaux. Most of the team has been in the game industry for 20 years, and we're building a next-generation virtual world embedded into Facebook. 3D platform to create social games and nurture your Facebook conversation.
You're in private beta right now?
Privately funded. We are in we were closed beta program, 160,000 users, and we are tuning, and we are launching first half of next year.
And last but not least, he was here on the previous panel, Jimmy Kim, who apparently loves the stage. You're still CEO at Nexonova, and you actually have another company, right?
I have a company called Innovative, and it's very different. It's a very UX-centric company that does control room solutions for CCTV management. So it's totally different from gaming. Yeah, but I'm here for gaming, so we'll talk about gaming today.
All right, so as I said, we have a lot to cover. Experience, business, platforms, and what I call elephants. On the experience side, let's first make short shrift of the title of this panel. When we say social is changing gaming, are we really changing gaming as we knew it, or just creating a new category? Who wants to go first?
I think what is striking when you make games, and I've been making PlayStation, Xbox, and PC games before.
Because you used to make like shrimp wrap games.
Yeah, real games run Ubisoft.
Oh, real games.
That's
interesting.
Well, that's what you tend to say when you're in the game industry. And obviously today I make great social experience. I think games, in a way, is a goal. When you make a console game, it becomes a mean. And certainly more important, it's a product. It's something you create as a fulfilling experience. It becomes a service, something that is more a conversation with a user. And games is a great way to engage and a great way to connect. I mean, there's this Plato word, I don't think it was particularly referring to games, but he said you can learn more by playing a game with someone than by speaking in a day, than speaking with him for a year. And I think games has this unique power to really reveal, connect people.
So, I mean, everything that you're doing isn't taking away from the major game publishers right now. It's really just creating something else, right?
Yeah, so I think social is changing the games industry because it's expanding it. Our view at wooga is that games are a core human desire. Everybody wants to play. But so far, only like 10 or 20% of the population were playing video games. Only the gamers. And we do games for the other 80%. And that's our view.
Well, that's actually not quite true, because Nintendo kind of opened up, and particularly, but some others did. I mean, people played The Sims that were not particularly playing games before, and Nintendo got people to train their brain or get fit with the Wii or the DS, and suddenly people would play games for hours per week and really don't feel like they're playing any kind of games. So
yeah, I think what's changed fundamentally is the distribution, right? So the accessibility and ways to participate in these types of experience where that were more difficult, and people had to either go to a flash-based experience online or a console-based experience. Now you can kind of get a richer, more immersive experience integrated into your social network. So that distribution's created a whole new category of time spent rather than a whole new category of experiences.
We tend to think of Yahoo, I mean, historically, as a great casual gaming platform, not much of a social gaming platform, but we might be wrong.
So, I mean, clearly we're the largest games provider online pre-Facebook phenomenon of social gaming with games at yahoo.com. And, I think it's early days for us in the social gaming space, but so far we're a couple weeks into our Zynga partnership and they're very happy with the results. So.
We tend to think of casual/social games as short gaming sessions, very easy play, you come back repeatedly, engage your friends, virality. Is that changing in any way? Are sessions getting any longer? I mean, I got tired of Farmville after level 38. At some point you just look at the screen and say, what am I doing here? What's the goal? Why am I here? Does that experience, is it going to have to evolve to remain successful?
Yeah,
Jimmy?
I would like to think, as from a gaming company, I think that one thing I'd like to is accessibility. First level was the pyramid on top where there was console, where you had to buy the device and the content. And then online gaming was the second pyramid where you had a computer, but you didn't have to buy the content, all you had to download. I think what Facebook and Flash did was that they opened up the whole thing where accessibility was key. But I think that the great thing is now people who didn't think they liked games, played games. And then once you taste something good, like good wine, you want to have better wine. So I think that the key thing right now, that after you do level 38, you're saying, what am I doing? I want to have Burgundy wine. I don't want table wine anymore. So I think that's where the progression is going to be, a deeper, immersive experience where people are going to appreciate.
So yeah, you said you reached level 38. How many months did you play Farmville to reach level 38?
I cannot address that.
No, I mean, all I'm saying is, I bet you played Farmville.
I stopped before it went on the iPhone. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be here. I'd be planting potatoes.
But I mean, from a total time frame perspective, I bet you played Farmville much longer than most other video games. I guess, right?
Enough about me.
I think one of the things that we found, at least in our experience, is fantasy sports is a social game. It started on a spreadsheet with an abacus back in the day and moved online, and now it's always been social though. You've always been playing it with friends. The difference though is that the immersion that fantasy has is always been immersive, but the market size is much smaller, right? To your point, people stumble into a Farmville or a Mafia Wars or some of your games, and they didn't know how much fun they could have doing these things, where fantasy sports is fundamentally, it's a more limited market. Even though it's tens of millions of people around the world, it's not hundreds of millions of people.
And Cedric, if you look at how many movies do you watch per year, and how many times do you watch one single movie? And I'm trusting that you played Farmville and you experienced Farmville much, much more than any kind of movie, entertainment, or even book franchise you plunge into.
But coming back to the session lengths, I mean, first of all, we must not forget Farmville was created 1.5 years ago. This industry is evolving rapidly, so if you look at the games that come out now, they are much richer and much deeper in their experience already. And in my view is gameplay sessions have to be designed to, they can be short, so there is very little resistance to enter, right? If you only have 5 minutes, you should be able to play a session. But we see that many people actually spend like half an hour or longer. So there are these long gameplay sessions, but they can be short.
Of course, anyone wanting to develop social games will ask what makes a great game, but I guess the real question is what kind of game should you make to address what kind of user group? Because you can now categorize, right?
Well, you know, there's this Nolan Bushnell, which was like the grandfather of all, and of Pong and Atari. He said, games have to be easy to learn, hard to master. So then it's the level of depth. When you do a social game, the depth is really in the social connection you create, but the rule of easy to learn, easy to engage. So it's a matter of themes, and what is great about Zynga products and obviously Jens products, it's really how appealing you are, and then mechanics itself has to be really plunged into the way you portray a social connection. And I'm really interested to see that a lot of women, you were saying me backstage, that a lot of 35 to 45 years old women would play, and they're actually a big active group on the web and now obviously on Facebook. Teenagers, young adults will have a very different approach, but all together it's because their social connection, the way they project themselves into their social pattern is different. But that's really what's the core of the game mechanic in the end.
Jimmy, for example, Nexonova makes full desktop games that actually install like FPS, which I guess address teenage to young adult males. But that audience is actually growing to over 45 females, I guess. I don't mean the FPS, but more of the bejeweled / casual games that you could find on Yahoo. Do you actually try to address specific, subpopulations with each game?
I mean, we're not in the publisher or game design business, so I think that's a more relevant question for the rest of the panel. For us, we want to bring experiences to different audiences that are most appropriate for them, right? So for example, fantasy sports on Facebook with the Citizen Sports games, we're very young males, right? But games.yahoo.com are your kind of housewives primarily, right? And clearly the games on Facebook are trending in that demographic as well.
On the business side of things, how do you monetize? I mean, there are several ways, and several of you are doing things very, very differently. I'll start with Jimmy. Last time I used one of your games, it was an FPS, and it was great, except people had better guns than me, and apparently they paid for them.
Well, that's why I said I think the key thing in gaming user experience is how you balance the experience and balance the play and balance the cash. There's virtual cash and there's cash. So the real thing is that Nexon, we specialize in microtransactions. So we do the freemium model in a sense. So definitely I think the business model that we pursue is microtransaction. It's very tricky because you have a lot of active users, but there's also paying users. And the paying users, there's also average rate per user. So that's how you calculate the game. So one of the key things is that you really have to design these experiences. What kind of game, what kind of content is it? Is it FPS? Is it racing? What's the system of level up? And what's the access point on the web? And is there extensions in mobile? I think these are the three things when we develop games that we take in content, accessibility, and also system. These are the three things that we really, when we design a game, is very, very important to us.
How is Mimesis Republic gonna finance itself?
Well, it's freemium, and I think it's really a very, it's a wonderful model. It's a very humbling model. I mean, I used to make games which we would work, for 2-3 years, spend 10 to 20 million to make the game, and then put them in a box, sold 70, 60, 90. And at the end of the day, people bought the box, and okay, it's cool. We got the money, we're fine. The thing is, obviously, you could put a bad game or an average game, and you would probably sell with good brand and good marketing. So I'm really happy about the freemium model in the sense, as a game designer, it's extremely important to make sure you convince the player to pay throughout the line, and I could not agree with you more on this. At the end of the day, it's also very connected, as my service is launching to teenagers, young adults. They're not accustomed to pay for things they don't actually try before, or they don't kind of sense as a worthwhile investment. So freemium is definitely the way to go to us.
The only problem I have with freemium is that it assumes that you're going to get like 5% of your users to pay, which will pay for the whole platform. Is that really like viable in the long run?
Well, the truth is, it's an engagement mechanic which forces you to respect that pact of being, a good experience. At the end of the day, you are offering package that's going to make micro-subscription model. In other words, you might buy a series of items that represent a 3, 4, 5, 6 month commitment in a way. Prior to our Mamba Nation, our virtual world, we did a service called myhorseclub.com for teenage girls from the age of 8 to 16 who loved horses, and so they can breed a horse and then ride a horse. And so we had 650,000 players, among them a little less than 100,000. It was only in France, so limited scale, and it was not a Facebook game, so not critical mass. But nevertheless, among these 100,000 people, you had a rough 10, 12,000 who were paying for robots, agents, to actually care for the horse when they were on holidays. So if they go on the summer break for 2 months, they would pay a 2-month, I know the French word, palefrenier, I don't know how you say that in English. Anyway, for someone to care for your horse for 2 months. And then obviously, because the horse didn't really jump, you need to have a trainer when you come back from holiday to get it a little more pumped up. So you pay an extra month. Eventually you put 3 to 4 months of what would be a World of Warcraft subscription fee. And that's really where you go. But it's, again, something that can be stopped at any time by the user, and that's really what the pact you need to respect.
Of course, gaming can be a very nice advertising platform. How effective is it when compared to other content?
Well, games.yahoo.com generates a significant amount of money in advertising. All of the citizen properties were advertising based as well, and as we're shifting into kind of more game distribution of the Zynga, wooga type games, as more of a platform provider, we see multiple lines of revenue, primarily around the distribution, similar to the way Facebook's been generating revenue in the past.
One thing that in my eyes is very interesting is that like 2 years ago on Facebook, there was a lot of advertising in social games. And in the meantime, it has shifted mostly to virtual goods. You almost see no advertising within social games on Facebook, because overall, virtual goods, if you use the same screen space for virtual goods, it delivers more revenue. So to answer your question, definitely you can build a business on virtual goods. And what is, in my view, very interesting, most people don't know that. Many people think, our audience is 70% women, and I hear many people out there saying, yeah, so if it's for male, you sell weapons, and for women, you sell just decorative items. And that's not true. What we really see from our audience is that you have to provide functional items. So something that just looks nice and gives you any advantage doesn't work, right? So you have to sell items that give you an advantage in gameplay, and then you make good revenues.
So you can sell those pretty pink shoes, but they have to make you walk faster or something.
Yeah, to a degree.
One revenue opportunity that we haven't mentioned for content creators is actually brand marketing. Which of you actually work for brands? Do you create stuff for brands?
No, we don't. But we think about 2011 that may be an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, next time we have experience of, like I said, blatant advertising really turns off people. So one of the key things is putting value to the item. And such as we did a promotion with BMW Mini to promote their cars. One of our games, Kart Rider, is a racing game, and one of the things is that we promoted with BMW Mini. Coke Play started in Korea with Nexon in the sense that we built the tracks, and then we're the first company to build a PPL of Coke tracks and Coke items and everything else right now. So the key thing, like I said, is game balancing is that there has to be value to the item. It can't just be blatant advertising. It said that there has to be certain value, very carefully placed value. So we'll do it. So once that is done, I think there's a big opportunity with big brands. So we, definitely Hyundai and major Korean companies, but the global brands are BMW Mini and Coca-Cola have successfully product-placed items in our games.
We haven't launched, but we are effectively talking to brands. One of the things that, and I couldn't agree with you more too, it really has to make a value to the experience. And certainly when you see some similar experience in entertainment, you would see product placement. If you look at iRobot, for instance, the movie with Will Smith, he's wearing Converse shoes and he's showing them all over the space. James Bond is the Omega watch and the whatever car. So really, it brings a little sense of connections to some brand values, and if it's a mutually acceptable deal, it makes a lot of sense for a brand, and it can be a better experience. In our case, we see our virtual world nurturing your real world. It's good to connect it through brands to your real world, particularly as we're with Mamba Nation targeting teenagers, which are really sensible to brands.
Let's talk about platforms for a bit. At least two of you are using Facebook as a platform. Of course, I'll ask Yahoo to just block your ears for a few minutes. But is Facebook really the be-all and end-all of platforms? Can you develop a business just by having your apps, your games on Facebook?
Yeah, so the key to social games is the social graph. That's the most important aspect of them. So you as a game developer, you know who the friends of your player are. And there, I think Facebook is moving towards almost a monopoly worldwide on that. I think even you use Facebook Connect for the Zynga integration on Yahoo. So for that, I think really Facebook is essential. And it's working like an operating system or a layer. And you can definitely build a business on that base. And we have a very good relationship with Facebook. We meet the product guys there very regularly. And they are in big support of games. They do everything to make sure that there's a good user experience on the platform, but at the same time that also game developers and game usage on Facebook is increasing. So we are very satisfied.
I mean, not only do I not want to close my ears, I would say that we built our business on top of Facebook. And
oh, really?
Well, the company that I sold into Yahoo was almost entirely built on Facebook and on Android and on iPhone. And I think the mobile platforms are just as irrelevant and probably will become more relevant than Facebook moving forward. But you will be using Facebook Connect on the mobile platforms to connect to the social graph. And moving forward, we see at Yahoo a huge opportunity to overlay that connectability with the graph and adding new layers, whether it be via gaming or other contexts, on top of the engagement and the media properties on Yahoo, on top of the identity and the connections that Facebook might bring to the table.
But I mean, they're not here, so they can't answer, but isn't building apps on Facebook a little like building accessories for iPhones? I mean, you serve at the whim and pleasure of your Lord and Master. If they cut you off, they cut you off.
I think that's a very good point. I think that Facebook definitely makes it easier for people to access a social graph. But if your business is based on Facebook's so-called policy, and one of the things that kind of alarms developers like me is that they keep on changing the policy. Of course, they talk to wooga very, very closely, but other companies, I mean, they don't really, the payment gateway, the structure, the API. I think for a game developer to feel comfortable to build a game is that they have to have visibility of what the platform is going to be. And I think that, so for a lot of gaming companies, there's a great way to test it out, and I think they'll stay there as long as Facebook is stable. But until now, I think I'm still wondering how stable, or because I have never been to Palo Alto.
I think you just need to go in eyes wide open, right? Yeah. I mean, Facebook is in the business of making a profit. Facebook is very aligned with the interests of their developers at large, and they will change the rules every 6 months. I mean, I think there's been 4 kind of transformational changes in their platform since they launched. I think they're doing better at trying to communicate what those changes will be moving forward, and I think it's you can have confidence that the changes will affect everyone consistently, whether it's Starbucks, Wooga, or Yahoo, right? So if you're a small developer with 3 guys in a garage, you can take some solace in the fact that Zynga, Yahoo, and Starbucks are primary constituents of Facebook's platform as well.
I mean, fundamentally, I think the social graph and the Facebook credits is a very, very good boon, because for developers now you can just access Facebook credits and then you can monetize anything from the world. The thing is, I guess for developers like me, we do want to see a little more stability and visibility in the plan, but also allow gaming companies to have social graphs. I think use Facebook as a benchmark, as a test, and everything right now. So it really is, Facebook's a great platform, but are we only going to launch on Facebook? Is it going to be the end? I think it's still an open chapter on that right now.
Really quick, how do you address mobile? Is it another game, a totally different game entirely? Can you really go cross-platforms with specific games? Is revenue addressed differently? Is it really, how different is it, basically? So, yeah, gents, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a mobile background, so I was chief product officer of Jumbo, in the UK known as Jamster. We did ringtones, games, everything for 7 years. And then I moved to wooga and founded wooga, and we are at the moment only on the web, not doing mobile. We will do mobile 2011 because we think then about time is ready. And we will do the same games that we have on the web. We will also do them on the mobile. Connected through Facebook, you can have the same game and you can play in the evening on your PC, and during the day you can play with your mobile phone. So that's our view. So it's the same
you're
games.
Basically extending the experience.
Yeah, it's extending the experience, optimizing the user interface for mobile, and making sure that people can not just play 2 or 3 times per day, but 10 times per day.
Well, I think I really prefer to have a different type of experience. You don't play a game on a mobile, you play like on the web. And as far as I'm concerned, and we've done something quite specific, in a virtual world, and as you plunge into it as on front of your PC, your mobile in the subway or in the bus, you may use it more as a follow-up experience. So it has to be interesting, compelling, but it's complementary. So, but that's the beauty of the experience that are evolving as of today, is really to get this kind of enhanced full experience. The great balance is to find what you do when you're at home alone, when you're with friends, when you're alone with your phone, and that's pretty exciting.
But you still know in the back of your mind that between tablets and smartphones, this is going to be the dominant platform in 5 to 10 years.
Well, there are already more mobile users and certainly iPhone, but you know, it's also, as everything, it's accessibility that matters. iPhone, I mean, I did games for Lagardère, French media group, for 3 years at the WAP, and Java and Brew. Verizon games in the US sold better because they were more accessible, and then Apple came and the iPhone changed it all. And I really think that there are challenges still besides Apple, I guess. So the Android platform and all that will have to get a little more mature, and certainly Facebook has also a card to play. To get their mobile app to be maybe more open to app, which is not today. So I think it's also interesting leverage.
Yeah, our focus will be around app discovery and distribution on mobile.
That's short and sweet.
I think that when we design games, it's more the holistic experience. It's not mobile 100% or web 100%. I think that now you have to take into consideration that, you know, like Foursquare, you're checking in places, and to me, that's a game. You know, if you're going to be mayor or not, and everything else right now. So I think that now the gaming experience is just not based on mobile, but when you have access to a PC, you're playing a more immersive experience. But you play anywhere, in the sense that it's part of your lifestyle, and you go around. And that is the stickiness that will keep your users together. So I think that's, so when we design games now, I think that we don't consider the mobile version or the trimmed down version, but this is all extensions of the game experience that you want to provide, which is deeply entwined in the user's lifestyle.
One last thing before we go to Q&A. Of course, one of the elephants in the room are the large game publishers, the Electronic Arts, Activision, Ubisoft, et cetera, et cetera. There used to be a time when people would say, oh yeah, but it's a whole different business. I mean, they make games, they have a long development cycle, they shrink wrap them, put them in stores, sell them for $60. Social gaming is so totally different. They're just clueless. And it's not their business model, it's just totally different. Well, now you can't really say that anymore. They're clueless no more. I mean, you see what Ubisoft has been doing with the latest Assassin's Creed, where you can go play a Facebook game to get new abilities within the console game. Aren't you afraid that they're going to just come over and eat your lunch? Because they have awesome IP, of course.
Well, I think it's a DNA issue. One thing I said earlier is that traditional games are a product, you know, and the way these companies are structured is there's game development in one end of the building, and the other end there's sales and marketing, and they don't talk to each other that much. They do more, obviously, than they used to, but it's still two separate sequences. You make the game, you sell the game, and really social games are all about connecting to the users, having a conversation with gamers and iterations, and that's the hardest thing to shift. Then there are other things which they're all publicly traded company. They have a lot of revenue stream, which makes things a little difficult to read.
Well, you see what they do online. Look at Nintendo. You can have games play with your Mii and the Miis of your friends. If Mario had a farm, I'd be going there.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, we have good friends in the game industry, and I'm chairman of SNGV, the French gaming trade body. So I don't want to be killed when I go after the panel. But the truth is, it's hard, and certainly by acquisition, like Playfish was acquired by EA, and other acquisition, Disney and Playdom, and certainly there are other opportunities that can create new paradigm. But it's certainly tough, and certainly also because shareholders are expecting the same kind of a revenue structure, which is totally different.
And I mean, yeah, you said all of these elephants, they now enter Facebook, and I mean, many of them are trying since quite some time. I mean, EA tried, they were not successful, then they decided to buy Playfish instead. And if you look at the top 10 game developers on Facebook, there's none of those elephants is among those top 10, right? No one is. And I mean, for us, we're not afraid at all. We're number 7 now worldwide on that list. I believe in 1 year we're number 3. And you say they all have all of this IP. I can see IP is much less important in social games, right? If you look at the top social games, almost none of them is based on external IP. And there are a couple of reasons why IP is so much less important for social games.
And Cedric, one last thing. There will be room for games on PlayStation 3. PlayStation 4 will come, new opportunities. So there's still people will be playing hardcore games too. So obviously not social games not going to replace totally hardcore games either.
It's additional. It's really additional.
All right, we just said 0 seconds. We have maybe like time for one question in the room. Anyone? If I can or cannot see you.
One quick question. Okay, here, front row. Has to be quick.
So, yeah, I'd like to ask the panelists if they see higher quality games coming soon to social platforms, like closer to a console game experience or PC game experience.
That was Benjamin Joff. Normally I ask people to identify themselves, but he was the led the last
Yeah,
panel.
so regarding the questions, are higher quality games coming to social platforms? I think they are already coming. If you compare like 1.5 years ago, 1 year ago, half a year ago, the quality is rising all the time. But this doesn't mean that we will see 3D games, because all of these 3D graphics, that's important to a gamer, but the traditional gamer is not the target group for a social game, right? So the games are becoming much higher quality, but that doesn't mean that we will have PlayStation-style graphics.
I strongly disagree with this, and obviously, as I build a 3D virtual world, again, Mamba Nation point is to bring a different experience. So I would agree with you in the sense that a 40-year-old woman might not be interested in a 3D game, and I certainly agree also 3D has to bring something different. But if you see at animation, besides changing the visual quality from Disney to Pixar, it's also brought a different way of telling stories. It changed the code, no more music, more wit, more rhythm. And I really believe that 3D is bringing a lot of experience. And one other thing which is the most exciting, which at Mamba Nation we're really interested in, is really the blending of virtual and real. That's something that maybe we all dreamed of when Second Life came, and for those of us in Europe who played Habbo Hotel, also kind of sense. It's the way you can actually have a social convention with your friends, and then join in some experience which a totally different 3D paradigm, and then bring back memories into the real world. You know that movie The Mask with Jim Carrey? Well, that's really what it is, when Jim Carrey in The Mask put the mask on, it's the same reality, the same people, but he's an avatar, he's a wolf from Tex Avery, and everything he does is fun, like a game, and when he put the mask back off, things have changed because of this gaming, fun, entertaining session. That's the paradigm we're trying to seize. Let's talk next year to see how it works, okay?
All right, our time's up. Thank you. Thanks a lot to the panel, and thank you in the room, and thank you online.